Welcome this morning. Thank you very much for joining us for the Tuesday morning Toolbox Talk brought to you by the Institute of Plumbing South Africa. We also want to say a very big thank you to SIOSH, the South African Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, for accrediting these Toolbox Talks with 1 CPD point, as well as to the PIRB for also accrediting these with CPD points. So thank you very much once again for all of you joining. This morning we are looking at ergonomics. What is ergonomics and how is it going to affect each and every one of you? So this morning, as we mentioned, ergonomics really is the scientific discipline concerned with the fundamental understanding of interactions amongst humans and other elements of a system. So a little bit of jargon this morning. So what does this actually mean? Well, it basically means, and when we're looking at a system, we're looking at the tools, the tasks, the organization, as well as the environment that surround an individual at work. And what we're trying to achieve here is to ensure that each one of these items or each one of these elements within a system doesn't harm or affect or expose the individual to unnecessary injury or risk, particularly looking at ergonomics. Now, ergonomics obviously is the comfort of a person working in a situation, not just on a physical standing. So not just because a person has to stand upright or because a person has to sit in a correct posture. We also look at the mental, the cognitive function of the person, as well as the environment around that person. So really, it's a holistic, multidisciplinary approach. And what we really want to achieve when we look at any ergonomic system is to analyze, identify, mitigate, and then review the risk that puts this person, this individual, at risk. Now, in 2019, the new ergonomics regulations was released. It is going to affect each and every company out in South Africa. So if you are an employer, well, then you will have to implement an ergonomics system. Certain things have obviously been pushed over to 2021, but the entire system and the functions of the system need to start being implemented right away. Now, why do we say this is very important? And what is the reason that the South African government has decided to take a look at ergonomics and apply theory, principle, data, and methods to design in the workplace to optimize human well-being and overall system performance? Well, it's because it has a real and direct impact on the safety, productivity, as well as the performance, not only of a company as a whole, but of each individual within that company. So ergonomics is extremely important. In fact, it should be part of our overall health and safety system. Ergonomics can affect an entire work system by enhancing the most important component. And this component is the ability to balance the task demands with employee capabilities. So we're not saying that you are not capable of performing your tasks. This is not a webinar or a toolbox talk to explain to you how you are supposed to be working. It's really there to, or being designed to assist us in understanding how we can take our work system, all four of the tools, the organization, the environment, and the tasks, and then enhance the employee's capabilities by increasing productivity, by making things simpler, easier to do, and also the nature or the environment of the work. In a position for any person while working on certain tasks or certain tools, we make it comfortable enough, not just physically, but also the entire environment around working in that task or with those tools, aimed at the human being, not specifically the task. So now you think, well, that's different to how we have been working. You see, we normally go and we quote on work, and this is correct. This is how businesses are run. You quote for a task, but the ergonomics system looks at the individual. And so we need to adjust our thinking a little bit. We need to balance it. We look at a business perspective from monetary profits and overheads and finances. And then the risk-based thinking for occupational health and safety helps us then to understand looking at the individual and how the task is going to be performed from their perspective. So what are we actually saying? There are three identifiers, or what we call three domains in an ergonomic system. And all this information that we have gathered for you will also be emailed through to you if you'd like. It's also on the Dropbox. There's a few PDFs there that give you an understanding of what is an ergonomic system, how to perform an ergonomics risk assessment, as well as a slideshow directly from the Department of Labor when they released these ergonomic regulations out in March of 2020. So the very first domain that we look at is always the physical component. This is the human anatomy or the physiology, the biomechanics of a person. And there in the picture, you can see it's like things very similar to working posture. So you have an incorrect way and you've got a correct way of doing it. Now, how do we take our management system of ergonomics and train this individual to use the correct working posture? Well, oftentimes we fall into the tell the person to do it instead of show the person to do it. And this is very important. Training is important. We need to explain to employees, but we also need to have a practical component to our training. So one of the parts of the new ergonomics regulations is training and identifying what the risk is and then training the staff and explaining to them what they need to do in terms of minimizing or eliminating an ergonomic risk on their physical being, but also the workstation. If we take a look at the area where that person is working, the task that they are performing, is that also conducive to their cognitive functions, their mental stress? And when we look at each domain, we look at the physical and we move over to the cognitive ergonomic risk, but these are all attached together. So we must remember that when we look at a physical part, we cannot take away the second domain of cognitive ergonomics. This is the mental process perception, memory, reasoning, motor response, how this affects interactions amongst humans in other elements of a system. So working together. So some topics that maybe you can think of there is work stress or training as it relates to the human system design. Now, it's important to acknowledge that ergonomics is not a standalone hazard. It must be part of a broader approach, ensuring that an entire workplace is safe without risk to the health of employees, because this promotes productivity. So although we look at the first domain of a physical ergonomic risk, and this is where persons mustn't stretch, they should use their legs to lift things, they shouldn't bend their back and strain themselves. And we look at a risk assessment and always have slip and trip hazards, all physical hazards. We now need to incorporate the other two domains. We've got the first domain down. We understand how it works. But what about the cognitive ergonomics? How is the mental process perception or memory or reasoning or motor response determined for an individual? What type of work are they performing? What are the stress levels a person is going through? Well, this could come down to the skill. How much skill does this person have in order to perform their task? So let's think realistically as a plumber. If you had to take on a job, quite a daunting task, something that all of you really want to get under your portfolios as plumbers, and this is some big tenders out there that many of you are going for. And when you land this tender, it's brilliant from a monetary perspective. So profit perspective, we're very happy. But how does this affect the stress on the employee? Well, how much work will they have to do during a 8-hour working day? How far will they need to push themselves in order to get the project completed on time? Now, we might say to ourselves, well, this is how it works in the working environment. This is what we do. We have time delays, we have project delays, we have deadlines. All of these things affect the bottom line, the amount that we have in our accounts. And this is true. Business perspective, this is 100% true. But what kind of stress do we put on ourselves as a business, as a company, to perform these tasks or to reach for growth in the business without giving skill development to our employees? Remember, if an employee cannot perform the task within his competency authority, then it puts a negative impact on the cognitive function of this employee. You see, they don't really know how to do the job, so they're not going to do it well enough, and they will constantly be concerned whether that job is good enough. And so if you have a person that is skilled and competent and aware of their current authority or their scope of authority, what they are allowed to do and what they are not allowed to do, this moves a person to feel confident in their work. Now, confidence can allay stress, because if you feel good about the type of work you're doing and you know how to perform the task, this will allow a person to then be more productive, because not only do they know they can do the job, but they know they have a reasonable amount of time to do it in. So things like human reliability. What does that actually mean for you as a company? What does reliance on another person mean? Well, in terms of health and safety, and obviously there's many different factors that we can discuss this morning, but let's look at one specific thing. As an employer, there are certain responsibilities according to the law that you should be implementing, and by extension, all employees have a responsibility to work safe in an environment that has been given by the employer. So it's teamwork. You need to work together. But how much reliance is there on the employee to perform the task once they've been trained? Well, this is where monitoring and review come in. You need to not police an employee, but monitor an employee. The way you go about this will affect your ergonomic system. You see, you can either pressurize the employee to perform certain tasks in terms of health and safety, or you can work together with an employee. Thus, the reliability both on employer and employee will be extended to the point of mutual cooperation instead of I tell you to do it, and so you must. The law says you must, and this is your responsibility. Granted, this is true. The law does state certain mandatory requirements for employers and employees, but how much more willing are you to perform the functions of your scope when you have the reliability of employees in a team that want to achieve the same goals and targets you have? So this is now something that we are going to have to look into. Obviously, very important to realize that it's going to be part of our risk management plan going forward. There are a few delays on when we need to put this in. There is a temporary exemption, and we'll discuss this with you now and explain to you what is going to be happening moving forward with this ergonomics regulations. But let's just take a look at the final domain, and this is the organizational ergonomics. This is optimization of systems, so the entire system. We're not looking at it individually. Again, we're looking at an holistic approach to ergonomics management, and this includes all three domains as one system, not compartmentalized. It must consider factors such as physical, cognitive, social, organizational, environmental, and all other aspects that affect your entire ergonomics management system. So this is, in layman's terms, ergonomics is an approach or a solution to a workplace problem, not necessarily a health and safety risk, but any workplace problem. And this is to design the workplace to suit the employee and not to have the employee designed to suit the workplace. So some topics that we can discuss on organizational ergonomics are things like resource management, workplace design, or the design of working times. Now you might think to yourself, well, how is this going to affect risk? Well, think about how we adjust risk strategies. How do we really rate a risk based on a single task? Because you could perform the same task every single day, but after a certain period of time, what happens to a person, and let's be honest with ourselves, when we do something repetitive, we're constantly doing it, do you not fall into the system of it becoming easier, looking for shortcuts, finding ways to be better at it, or to make it easier for ourselves? See, something that's repetitive sometimes becomes boring because you go into autopilot. And so you stop really thinking about the importance of the task. You just think about getting the task done. One simple illustration is driving. Sometimes we can drive, we're thinking of many different things, we're running companies in our head, we're performing tasks in our head, we're buying or purchasing of things, we're constantly thinking. And as we're driving, we don't think about putting in the clutch and changing gears. We don't think about using an indicator. It's almost automatic. It just happens as we are driving. But that could become a distraction to us. And now, because it becomes so easy to drive, we now start sending emails while we're driving. We update our Facebook statuses. We take calls, WhatsApp messages. And now this becomes an additional hazard because now we are so far distracted from driving, even from our normal cognitive functions, that we overexpose our brain to so many other distractions that we are not focused at all on what is happening, not just in the vehicle, but even around us in the environment. And this is where road rage happens, accidents and all sorts. We've experienced this before. We've seen this on our roads. So what does this mean? Well, we've got to come back to basics. We've got to take a look at how often are you driving? How far are you driving? How many breaks are you taking? Are you eating? Are you drinking? This all becomes part of ergonomics because it's the impact that driving has on you as an individual. Now, let's take this to the extent of your actual working or task that you have to perform for the day. How often are you performing the task of excavating to remove waste pipes or excavating to install waste pipes? Well, the excavation procedure can be done by machines, which is nice, but the person operating that machine, is he ergonomically safe in that machine? What does he do during periods of rest? Is he only sitting down all the time? Because operating sitting down and resting sitting down means he doesn't have a lot of options to stand up, to walk around, to stretch. So what impact is this having on that person's body? What about the person who needs to work inside the trench? Now you're bending over quite often. You see, you climb into the trench and you bend over working on all that piping. How is this hurting you physically? How is it hurting you mentally? What is the organizational ergonomic situation? How is it structured? Has it been designed so that there is enough employees to perform the task and not one person left alone in that trench? Teamwork. Take a look at the cooperative work or the quality management of how it's done. So all of this basically becomes part of your ergonomics system. Now you might think, you might be sitting there saying, well, I'm a small plumber. We don't have the resources or finances or sometimes even the time to implement such difficult regulations that the government puts in front of us. So how are we going to achieve this? Well, it's as simple as starting with step one. Take your current risk assessment and start adding in the ergonomics risks to your current tasks. Just do that. A very good ergonomic system is going to have a strong foundation on a risk assessment. Once you've started there, the rest of the impacts of this new regulations will be a lot more easy to fit in to your organization's health and safety system. Now, if you need help with this, we are starting to design it for IOPSA. We are starting to look at how workplace, organizational, cognitive functions, and physical ergonomics risks affect you as plumbers out in the industry. We've read through the ergonomics regulations and how it affects each of us individually out in this industry, not just from a health and safety perspective, but from a plumbing perspective as well. And so what we want to do is we want to assist you now to put in place certain items, just very, very basic things, because there is a temporary exemption on the risk assessment as well as the medical surveillance. And this is being done on the 30th of June 2020, until the 30th of June 2021. It was signed by Tibozana. If you'd like a copy of this, I can email it through to you. Basically, on the 19th of the 5th, 2020, this was sent to us. It's a notice regarding the implementation of ergonomics risk assessment and medical surveillance. So the government understood that they were putting a lot of pressure on employers to put these regulations into action straight away. And yes, it's an action that we need to put in. But do you want to wait until the 30th of June 2021? Or do you want to get started now and take a look at your current risk assessment in terms of health and safety and add in the aspect of ergonomics? You see, it was always in there. We always looked at the physical ergonomics of a person. Let's now add in those other two sections. Let's add in the cognitive function, the mental ergonomics of a person. Then let's look at the organizational ergonomics and how that is affecting your overall risk system. Then let's get help. Let's get the ergonomics regulations. We've got it downloaded. We'll send it through to you. We're going to give you a PDF version of the Department of Labor discussing the ergonomics regulations. We're then going to send you a PDF on implementing an ergonomics program, which is designed by Ergonomics South Africa, as well as the understanding and ergonomics risk assessment. All of these, it's good reading material. And from here is where we're going to start asking you to please send us your risk assessment. Send it in Word, PDF, Excel, whatever you want to send it in. We'll keep it private, but we're asking you to send it through so that we can take a look at how you are designing your risk assessment. Are you perhaps doing it in accordance with the ergonomics regulations right now? And what adjustments can we make to put in place these regulations now before it gets too late? And then the medical surveillance, yes, the medical surveillance that is required here is going to be an entry medical, an exit medical, and periodic workplace medicals on all employees. So yes, the government is putting on certain responsibilities to every single employer. But if we are not prepared now, by the time this temporary exemption is over, we are not going to be prepared. So let's work together. We are calling on each one of you out there in the industry to really let's help each other. Let's help the small ones. Let's help the bigger companies. Let's work together in this industry to be ready and prepared to implement these ergonomics regulations to the benefit of our employees and to the benefit of the overall risk management of our company as well. So this is the end of our toolbox talk for this morning. There's a lot more we can discuss when it comes to ergonomics. In fact, we want to reach out to each and every one of you and constantly discuss ergonomics and the new regulations and its impact on you as an industry. And regardless whether you're a safety professional listening in today, whether you're a plumber or any other industry out in the built environment, please reach out to us and let's work together on establishing a good program and procedure for moving forward. This is all we want to achieve. We want to be able to assist those who perhaps don't have the resources and the finances to back the implementation of this. And those of you who perhaps do have it and you have something to share, or maybe you can volunteer your time or efforts, or perhaps you've booked training. You're going to teach your employees on ergonomics. Can you include 2 or 3 extra persons from a different company to attend with that class? Oftentimes, health and safety professionals out there are trained in ergonomics. Are you holding a class? Can you add in 1 or 2 extra persons at a cheaper cost, or perhaps even free of charge, just to get them that training and understanding? You know, if we don't work together, we will never be a team. And in an industry, we obviously want to assist each other. So we're going to leave you with 5 things on a physical thing to remember for the rest of this week. Physical ergonomics, one of the things we want you to implement straight away, and this is to prevent back and neck pain. Create a spine-friendly workplace. Watch your posture. Strengthen your core. So exercise, extremely important. Listen to your body. This is very important. If your mouth is dry, if you're feeling thirsty, it means you're already going to stages of dehydration. So please, hydration is extremely important for your body. And then remember, do not lift with your back. Always lift with your legs. And those are 5 things we want to leave with you, but we do not want to end it there. We really want to reach out to each and every one of you to assist you in designing your management system in terms of health and safety with an ergonomics function as well. So please reach out to us, ohss.co.za, info@ohss.co.za, or my private line, chris@ohss.co.za. You can also reach out on the WhatsApp line on 071-875-2070, or give us a call. If you don't answer, drop us a mail, or we'll try and get back to you as soon as we can. So thank you very much for listening to us this morning. Again, there's a lot more we would like to discuss with you, but next week we are looking at the responsibilities of employees. This may change. Just as a heads up, we might change this to discuss carbon monoxide poisoning, and this is because we have had a few queries coming in regarding this, and we really want to touch base on this silent killer and how it's affecting many of us in the plumbing industry. So maybe look out for that. If we do not have all the content yet, we will push the carbon monoxide poisoning for next month. But we look forward to seeing you for whatever we're going to discuss next week, Tuesday morning. And I look forward to chatting with each and every one of you over mail, WhatsApp, or even over the telephone over the next coming weeks and months to really implement a good, strong strategy for the implementation of our ergonomics regulations.